In the snowy mountains of New Hampshire, a car was left abandoned by the roadside. A wallet, clothes, everything remained untouched, but the owner, Maura Murray, had vanished, without a trace, without an explanation. And from that moment, the truth was buried in the freezing mist. February 2004, New England was gripped by a brutal winter. Snow lay thick on rooftops, on narrow roads, and across endless forests. Temperatures often dipped below -10 degrees Celsius, and the wind slipped through every gap like icy blades. Against this backdrop, a young woman was preparing for a trip no one knew would be her final journey. Maura Murray, 21, was a nursing student at the University of Massachusetts, Amherst. She had been an outstanding track athlete in high school, intelligent, disciplined, and rarely one to show much emotion outwardly. On the surface, her life seemed ordinary: a boyfriend, a loving family, friends, and a clear career plan. But in the days leading up to her disappearance, small details began to emerge. Scattered puzzle pieces that would later form the heart of one of America's most mysterious missing person cases. A few days before leaving campus, Maura had a minor incident at her dorm job. No one knows exactly what happened, but witnesses recalled her looking shaken, eyes red, as if trying to hide a deep worry. She still went to class, still trained for sports, but was sometimes caught staring into the distance, as though consumed by a problem she could not share. On Sunday, February 8th, Maura drove to visit her father in Massachusetts, shopping and had dinner together. Then she returned to her dorm. That night, she had a small car accident while driving her father's vehicle. No one was hurt, but the car was slightly damaged. The matter was quickly resolved, yet her mood seemed to grow heavier. On Monday morning, February 9th, Maura searched her personal computer for rental listings and lodges in the mountains of New Hampshire, about 3 hours from campus. She also looked up maps and routes into the remote White Mountains region. No one knew why she chose that destination. She emailed her professor, saying she would be away for the week due to a family emergency, an excuse that wasn't true. She also called her boyfriend, leaving a short message, and then cut off contact with everyone. That afternoon, Maura packed some clothes, textbooks, and food. In her bag were bottles of alcohol and a folded map of northern New Hampshire. She left the dorm, driving her old black Saturn, turning off the busy streets, and heading deeper into the quiet countryside. Winter darkness fell quickly. The scenery outside her car window shifted from straight, paved road. The road grew darker as Maura drove deeper into northern New Hampshire. The winter sky was heavy and gray, low clouds pressing down, signaling that another snowstorm was on its way. On both sides, the forest stood silent, tree trunks glazed with ice, like giant black sentinels guarding the deserted road. Her old Saturn rolled over a plowed but still slippery layer of snow. The headlights swept across faded road signs and scattered wooden houses, each hundreds of meters apart. There weren't many cars heading her way. Occasionally, one would appear from the opposite direction, rushing past and vanishing, leaving only darkness and the sound of the wind. The map on the passenger seat remained open, its corner trembling with each bump. The dashboard clock read just after 7 p.m. At this pace, she would soon reach Haverhill. But instead of turning toward a town, the road led her into a narrow mountain pass. Flanked by towering snowbanks, a sharp curve appeared ahead, steep and tight. The tires slipped slightly, the dry scrape of rubber on ice echoing in the air. In an instant, the Saturn lost traction, spinning sideways. The front left wheel plowed into a snowbank, slamming into a frozen embankment. The impact wasn't enough to deploy the airbags, but it was enough to rupture the radiator and kill the engine. The car came to rest at an angle on the roadside, its nose buried in the snow. Behind her, no headlights approached. Ahead, the road curved away into darkness. Around her, only the hiss of the wind through the trees and the faint ticking of cooling metal broke the silence. The temperature had dropped below -10 degrees Celsius, Maura sat inside the car for a few seconds, then stepped out. The cold wind whipped, her face seeping quickly through her coat. The tires sank deep into the snow, and white steam drifted up from the damaged engine. In that stillness, every sound was sharp. The crack of a branch in the distance, the crunch of snow underfoot, and something fainter. The hum of an approaching engine dot from the south. Headlights emerged. A vehicle slowed as it neared, then stopped a few meters away. A man stepped out, the rare yellow glow from a streetlight catching half of his face beneath a knit cap. He looked over the battered Saturn, then turned his gaze toward Maura. From this point on, no one witnessed what happened next. Only a few statements from locals would surface later. They recalled seeing a police cruiser stop at the scene minutes after the accident was reported. When they returned, the Saturn was still there, but Maura was gone. Along the roadside, number-clear footprints led into the woods, only a few disturbed patches on the hard snow. The car was sealed and towed to an impound lot. Inside, police found clothes, some food, alcohol, and the map. No wallet, no phone, no signs of struggle. That minor accident, which should have been just another routine traffic mishap, became the final fixed point before Maura Murray vanished into the dark. From here, the theories began to multiply, each one opening a new labyrinth, drawing investigators and the public deeper into the mystery. That night, the cold wind from the White Mountains blew harder, sweeping across empty roads and untouched stretches of deep forest. After the crash, the first few minutes were critical. But in that narrow window of time, Maura Murray vanished, leaving behind a scene that, the more it was examined, the more it seemed something didn't add up. The Saturn was found at around 7:45 p.m., only a short distance from a few scattered houses. Yet no one heard screams, and no one saw her walk. Away, a few witnesses claimed that before police arrived, they saw a figure standing by the car. When they returned, both the person and the shadow were gone. Police searched the area around the scene that very night. Flashlight beams cut through the forest, revealing untouched snow with no signs of long strides or hurried steps. On a thin layer of ice near a drainage ditch, there were only a few disturbed patches without a clear shape. The wind quickly erased them. In the following days, search teams expanded the radius to dozens of kilometers. They brought in K9 units, helicopters, and thermal scanners. But the results were the same. Nothing. The skin-cutting cold, combined with the rugged terrain, quickly erased every fragile clue. The map found on the passenger seat bore no special markings. Personal belongings suggested she had prepared for a long trip, but no one knew the destination. Even her schedule in the days prior had become hazy. Small details, withdrawing cash, emailing a professor for time off, searching for information about the area near where she disappeared, only deepened the tangle of theories. The once quiet town of Haverhill was now drawn into a tense investigation. Every house, every patch of forest, every empty lot was combed over. Strange vehicles had their plates recorded. Whispered conversations between neighbors spread quickly. And, as in any disappearance, rumors began to take root. Some believed Maura had left to start a new life, deliberately erasing her trail. Others were certain she'd been the victim of a passing stranger. Still others thought she had met someone she knew and left with them willingly, or not. But all of it was speculation. No one knew what happened after the headlights of that unknown vehicle faded and the darkness swallowed the road. In official reports, the last confirmed moment she was seen remained the same. The Saturn, sitting at an angle in the snow, the starting point of a mystery that has endured for decades. Posters with her photo were taped to utility poles, bulletin boards, and convenience store windows. The ink faded under snow and rain, but the eyes in the picture still seemed to look out into the distance, beyond the whitewashed roads, toward a place no one could name. From here, the investigation entered a stage where every lead seemed to dissolve into nothing. And it was precisely that void which turned the Maura Murray case into one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in modern American history. As time stretched on with no new discoveries, the disappearance of Maura Murray entered a distinctive phase, one where theories and speculation became the main current, flooding newspapers, online forums, and even small-town conversations. The first theory, and the simplest, suggested that Maura had run away to start a new life. Supporters pointed to her withdrawal of all the cash in her account, her email requesting time off from school, and the printed map of northern New Hampshire. Yet a central question lingered. If this was a planned escape, why draw attention with a car accident? And why leave no sign for her family? The second theory leaned toward abduction. The disappearance took place on a remote road, an ideal setting for a vehicle to stop without being noticed. Witness reports of a strange car nearby only strengthened this idea. But to this day, no one has confirmed the license plate or the driver's identity. A branch of this theory even asked whether Maura knew the person in that vehicle. If she did, it could explain the absence of struggle or signs of flight. But that possibility opened another labyrinth. If it was someone she knew, who were they, and why did they vanish with her? The third theory, less publicized but persistent, in the shadows, was the possibility of suicide. Certain details about Maura's mental state in the days before her disappearance have been scrutinized, but there is no concrete evidence, and her family has vehemently rejected the idea. Other investigative paths also emerged. Had she wandered into the forest and succumbed to the elements? Her body hidden by snow? Was she trying to escape an undisclosed personal problem? Or was there a chain of events involving people around her that police have not revealed? The internet became a battleground. Web sleuths dissected every frame of satellite maps, every detail in police reports, even the weather data from that day. They retraced her route, marked every house, every turn, but no one found a definitive answer. As the current of speculation grew stronger, the case became shrouded in a new kind of fog, not the kind that rolled down from the mountains, but one born of human imagination and obsession. Every missing person case has its mysterious crossroads moments, where even the smallest decision could completely alter the outcome. For Maura Murray, those crossroads existed both literally and figuratively. On the map, Route 112 stretches from the crash site into a web of smaller roads, some leading deep into the forest, others toward small towns near the Vermont border. Each road was a possibility, and each possibility required enormous search resources. Search teams had to choose, expand the search to cover the entire region, or focus tightly on the immediate area. This decision split their time, and once a few days passed, any potential trail could have been wiped away by the brutal weather. In the shadows of the investigation, some crossroads were informational. Someone came forward claiming to know what happened, but their story was vague and impossible to verify. There was also a report of strange noises in the woods on the night of the disappearance, but the location was unclear and no one else had heard them. Other crossroads were emotional in nature. Pleas from the family, pressure from the media, and the quiet undercurrent of doubt within the community. All of it seemed to push the case deeper into a labyrinth, where every turn led to yet another dead end. Years later, new pieces of evidence surfaced, or were claimed to be new. A scrap, a fabric, a rusted object, a suspicious trace. But each time, hope was extinguished when testing produced no answers. These clues were like faint lights at the end of a tunnel, only for people to realize, upon approaching, that they were merely reflections from the darkness itself. As time passed, the scene of the disappearance changed. Trees grew thicker, the asphalt was repaired, the nearby houses changed hands. But the mystery of Maura Murray remained fixed, like an unmovable landmark in the town's collective memory. And it was at the intersection of these dark crossroads that the case entered a new chapter, one where hope and despair walked side by side, and everyone was left to wonder, is the truth right before our eyes, or has it been buried forever? Time is the silent enemy of every investigation. When a single day passes without answers, clues begin to fade. When a month passes, witness memories start to blur. And when years go by, the case itself becomes a hazy story swallowed by layers of overlapping theories. In the disappearance of Maura Murray, time became a ghost that haunted every search effort. Years after she vanished, new searches were still organized, but they no longer carried the urgency of a rescue mission. Instead, they were quiet expeditions, with only a few volunteers carrying old maps and fragile hopes. The case files sat in metal cabinets, growing thicker each year with new reports, yet never moving closer to the truth. Inside that stack of papers were topographical sketches, satellite images, interview notes, and pieces of evidence faded with age. Each page was like a fogged mirror, reflecting back brief fragments of that fateful night. Fragments no one could fit into a complete picture. From time to time, the media revived the case. A special investigative TV segment, a popular podcast episode. Each time, a wave of interest surged. Those who had forgotten the case remembered again. Those hearing the story for the first time became drawn in. But when the noise faded, the case returned to its familiar silence. Time also changed the people connected to it. Police officers who once worked the investigation had retired. Neighbors near the crash site had moved away. Some witnesses had even passed on, and, with each closed door of memory, the ghost of time stole away another precious piece of the puzzle. Still, even as everything else faded, certain details clung on like scratches that would never disappear. The photograph of the Saturn buried in snow, the map with routes crossed out, the dates on old receipts, and the gaze in the rare photos of Maura eyes that seemed to ask what truly happened. Some believe the truth is still out there, waiting for someone to stumble upon it. Others think the secret has been buried forever in the deep forests of New Hampshire, along with every answer. Years later, on an autumn morning, thick fog blanketed Route 112. The road was the same, winding and silent. But for those who knew the story, every curve, every gentle slope carried an uncanny weight, as if they still held the memory of that night. Locals seldom spoke of the disappearance, yet no one ever truly forgot. There were houses people believed Maura had once passed. There were patches of forest where searchers still believed some trace might remain. The Maura Murray case had long since moved beyond the bounds of an investigation file. It had become a dark legend, a story to which each listener added their own imagined piece. The internet was still full of articles, analyses, maps, and theories. But all of it was only echoes in the fog, repeating endlessly. With no one certain which was the original sound, Maura's family kept her room exactly as she had left it. Her belongings remained in their places. The photographs were still there, gazing at the world with the eyes of the past. Sometimes a family member would speak of her not as a victim, but as a vibrant young woman with unfinished dreams and plans. At night, when the wind howled through the trees, those living nearby claimed they could still sense something, not a ghost, but a heavy feeling, as if the story had never truly ended. Maura Murray vanished on a winter evening, leaving behind a void that could never be filled. That void did not exist only in police files, in her family's memories, or on internet forums, lay deeper, in the human obsession with what cannot be explained. And until the truth is found, if that day ever comes, the ghost of time will silently follow every road, every person who passes through this land, whispering a question with no answer. Maura Murray, where did you go?